Someone new comes to you, what's your kind of protocol for assessing them?
Yeah, so
From like obviously the strength, fitness, performance, what is the whole kind of layout? How do you structure that?
yeah, so we've got the Boxing Science testing battery, which analyzes their movement, their speed, their strength, their power. Also, we have an assessment for estimating punch force and punching speed. And then we work on their high intensity fitness. So if I take you through the full testing battery, the movement is like an overhead squat. And now with movement assessments, you can kind of get bogged down with like FMS and loads of different like physio screening activities. But when you do physio screening activities, it highlights like quite a lot of problems. The problems arise if you're really looking for them. With the overhead squat, you kind of get a lot of the answers through that as well. If an athlete has got an injury or something like that, I would refer them to physio, to a physio screening. Thing is with physio screening as well, it's quite subjective and it's to the trained eye. So that's why I put them up towards physio. So like with overhead squat, I can get a good gauge of, are they imbalanced between left and right? Are they tight in their shoulders? Are they tight in their hips? Also do a single leg squat to stand assessment as well. So you can see the imbalances between left and right. Low limb, but also through the trunk rotation as well. That gives us a good indication there. And then we've got our jump assessments, so something that we're going to be doing this weekend, the reactive strength index. So that's a 10x5 pogo hop, assessing their ability to produce force and flight time, how quickly they can absorb that and reproduce that force through the contact time as well. So not only do we take what we call reactive strength index, RSI, we also look at in detail what they actually need to work on. Do they need to work on the flight time? So that's like basically the ability to produce force, or do we need to work on the contact time, the ability to control that force, absorb it, and then reproduce it. Then we've got counter movement jump and squat jump, which is assessment of lower body impulse. Then we work onto their strength profile, so something that you did earlier, the load velocity profile, seeing how they deal when they're stepping up in terms of weight load, see what kind of strength athlete are they. Are they fast but not that strong? Or are they strong but need to work on their speed? And this can really look at and help us analyse their performance and tell them exactly what they need to work on. What are their strengths? Do we work towards them strengths? Look at their areas for improvement and work on them weaknesses. Then we do the landmine punch throw test, which is assessing their ability to produce force and speed through punch-specific action. Start off with a med ball throw, but we've adapted that just because you're getting better feedback, you're more accurate with the med ball punch throw, with the trajectory of it. So some people might throw it more forceful, but because they haven't got the trajectory right and the throw, might not get as much distance. And also when they throw it long, we're trying to see where it lands. So with a landmine punch throw, it's much more controlled, much more data driven as well. And also we can create like load velocity profiles. So we look at whether they're fast with a lighter weight and see how they kind of maintain that towards a heavier weight as well. Then we work on like kind of core assessments. So we'll do the prone and supine holds. We used to do it with the lateral holds, where we're seeing left and right obliques, but we found that were quite a stressful position. It's quite hard for them to actually maintain that position. And also we didn't really assess like maximum force and intent. So that's why we're now looking towards doing rotational isometric testing. That will give us a bigger insight to how strong they are in their obliques. Then we work on fitness, and there's various fitness tests that we do. A lactate profile, which is a bit like boxing, where it's 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. We start them from 9 kilometers an hour or 10. And then after each 3 minutes, they have a rest. We take their blood lactate, we take their heart rate, we take their RP, the rate of perceived exertion. So how their heart rate's like kind of responding, the cardiovascular fitness, how the muscles are responding towards that increased intensity. Do they require more like kind of lactate to be able to perform? And then what their rate in perceived exertion is, how hard they're finding it. Okay, so start that around about 10. We increase it by 1 kilometer an hour each time, and each stage what we'll see is an increase in heart rate, an increase in lactate, and also that trend in lactate as well. So then we can profile them a little bit like the load velocity profile, where we're seeing, is an athlete more high intensity based, or they're more endurance based, or they're a hybrid of the two. And then we've got a 30-15, which is a little bit like a bleep test, where it's working on their high intensity capabilities, basically the max effort. Then also we've started doing a 30-second Wingate on the air bike. So 30-second all out effort to just see what their maximum intensity fitness is like. So yeah, that's about an overview of
And then just quickly, then how do you then discuss with the coaches? I can imagine that must be quite a difficult thing. You know, like this guy's really say hypomo, I was really tight, needs to do this, but really needs to like be specific with his say anaerobic like threshold training. How do you get that across to coaches who are very much could be locked in that old school method of he needs to run more if he's unfit? Like they don't. How would that conversation go?
It's obviously it's all individualized, whether, you know, how much a coach actually engages with it. Most coaches look for feedback, but they won't want like it in full 100% detail. Maybe like explain a little bit like what the athlete is in front of them. With the athlete, we'll give them a full profile and say what the strengths and areas for improvement are. We'll pass that on to the coach, and it's up to the coach then how many questions they want to ask. Like what we don't want to do, overload them with science, make them feel uncomfortable, or threatened. You know, we don't want them to be thinking that way coming in like smart arses and saying all your training's been terrible. And that's probably what we've probably been guilty of in the past. Not intentional, but that's sometimes how you can end up coming across. So we've got to keep that in mind and say how much feedback that we give the coach. Obviously to the athlete, we say, right, these are your strengths, these areas for improvement, this is exactly how we're going to do it. And then obviously tracking their changes as well and making sure that the coach is in the loop in terms of like, if they're hitting the numbers and they're hitting the personal bests, that's great. And if they're a little bit behind, they need to know that as well. So yeah, it's about gauging what that coach wants to do and how much information that they actually want to know, but still getting the important information across.